Henry Cejudo came out. He had a great line. Great line in terms of being funny, right? And he comes out and he was talking about Figueiredo. He said, Figueiredo is babysitting my belt. Now, at some point, this is going to get old and it's going to get boring, right? Henry's either got to get on with it or not. But we're not to that point yet. We are not. It is still fun and it's still funny. And I think the reason that Henry is getting so much run at hinting or threatening to do something that he's showing no signs that he's actually going to do is because he keeps doing it in a clever way. If Henry came out and said, I could beat Figueiredo, okay, that was boring. That was dull. But Henry doesn't. He always seems to find some new way to do it. I've never heard that term before. He's babysitting the belt. In fact, if I break that down, and if I do break that down, then I'm going way further with this thought than Henry ever intended to. But if I were to break that, it reminds me of my time in English class in college, where we had to study poetry and then come back and argue for the professor what it was about. And I remember being graded on this. And I remember being insulted to this day because the people that I was breaking down the poetry that this professor went on and got a degree and decided that they got to judge my education and others was some guy that was stoned and wrote down a few words in something called a stanza, but we were supposed to make believe as college students on the pursuit of knowledge that he had some deeper meaning. So I'm going to take my professor's stance on this, even though I know Henry was just having some fun and typed it up, but let me break it down anyway, okay? Mr. Carr would be very proud of me for the lessons that I learned because he said babysitting. He said babysit. He didn't say he's watching my belt. He didn't say he's looking after my belt. He doesn't say it's a placeholder for my belt. He doesn't say that's my belt and he only has it because I left. He said babysitting. But think of it in these terms. Stay with me. What do you guys use a babysitter for? Mom and dad are going to go to dinner. Babysitter comes over. When mom and dad come home, babysitter leaves. So is Henry saying, was this the first tip of the hat of I am coming back, and not only am I coming back, I'm coming back at 125? If that is what he's saying, the 135-pounders can breathe a sigh of relief, but apparently Henry's coming back at 125. Or he used the wrong word. Far more than likely, he just used the word babysitting, but I am choosing to look into this more analytically than the author of said statement did, because I used to have to do that in English class in college, when I had to break down a poem that the author never even thought of. But I do think it's interesting that he said the word babysit, because that means he's coming home. That means that babysitter is then done, is relieved, no longer needed. And I'm a little bearish on that idea because it is 125. I think as a Cejudo fan, I think I would have more excitement had he said this to Jan, to a 35-pounder. I cannot imagine Henry to ever return to 125. I thought we had very clear evidence of that when he walked away and put it up for grabs to start with. But I also understood it. We can all relate to that, right? If I'm doing the same thing for the same amount of money, for the same reward, which is a world championship, why would I want to take an extra 10 pounds off? That just sounds painful. Why would I not keep 10 pounds on, which sounds less painful, and get the same reward for the same championship in the same placement of a card, which is a main event in the same title fight because I'm the one bringing it, but do it at 135 pounds. So I do admit that I'm looking too far into this. Henry is not coming back, at 125, period. Henry may be coming back. He's giving us no signs that he is, but he's still doing his job. Henry's job right now is to make sure that he has something to come back to make sure that if he was to ever change his mind, he has the ability to. And the fact that Henry continues to find a way to reinvent himself, insert himself, but do it in a unique and interesting way is why he saved that division in the first place. It's why I'm sad to see him go right when I thought Henry was figuring everything out. And I'm right, he was. Proof of which would be his placement on the card, the opportunities that he was giving, and the extra zeros and commas on his paycheck. And all fair, Henry was just figuring things out. But I feel by listening to him, even from a distance, saying terms like babysit, that he's better now than when he left. And that was only 6 months ago. That was in May. Henry's only been gone, it was 7 months, and we miss him. And he is doing things right. I got called out over the weekend. I got called over the weekend by Vitor Belfort. And Vitor Belfort said in social media, I'm going to shut his mouth. I'm going to kick his ass. Right. And the audience just falls asleep. I'm going to shut his mouth. Whoa, that's a unique one. That's never been said before in the history of fight. I am going to kick his ass. Well, I mean, right. In the world of, wow, you really caught me off guard. How long did that take for you to think, I'm going to kick his ass? It's a fist fight in a steel cage with a mouthpiece and short pants for the applause of a drunken audience and I'm going to kick his ass. Do you see where that's hard for me to respect and then engage with Vitor? Do you see where intellectually we're now at different ends of the spectrum? Meanwhile, Henry, to juxtapose it, came out with a new line of babysit that was also thought-provoking, all while proclaiming himself to still be the best. It was creative. It was different. It was fun. Vitor, please, pay attention.